Hello viewers and welcome to another edition of our literary program. Today we are in a very sprawling and beautiful home of none other than Ma'am Bijoya Sawian. Now we all have heard about her, especially her writing skill. She of course is from Shillong, but currently she also lives in Dehradun, though she has schooled herself from Shillong and her highest studies were from New Delhi. And she has been delving a lot, writing a lot, especially writing about her people, the Khasi, that is the Khasi tribe from the state of Meghalaya. She has translated a number of works, legendary works from Khasi into English. And well, some of the works include such as Khasi myth, legends and folk tales about one god, teachings of elders, etc., etc. But then apart from that, she has also written novels. I believe her love is more into novel writing. That we will be finding out a little later. But some of the novels include Shadow Men. This is one of the novels that she has written. And another one is a collection of short stories. I believe it's called A Family Secret and Other Stories. So there you have it. We have the very beautiful, the very a person with a lot of personality here in this edition of our literary program. She is none other than Bijoya Sawian. So I welcome her to this program. A very, very warm welcome and thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor for us to really be able to come to this beautiful home of yours and to be able to talk to you and include you as one of our very esteemed guests in our literary program.
Thank you, Moshimi. Hello, viewers. Kubleya Pibara. I'm so happy to be sitting here with Moshimi and being able to, she's given me this opportunity to express some of my views and also something about my writings.
All right, so ma'am, as we always do with all of our guests, we go back a little bit behind time and I will take you also into down memory lane. And I'm sure you would love to relive those days once again.
I hope I remember enough.
Because much of your childhood you have spent here, school in Loreto Convent.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about your early life, ma'am.
See, I grew up in a very traditional Khasi family. And first I went to Sankhasi till class 4. And then my parents decided that learning English was very important. If I have to reach out to the rest of the country and the world and be able to carry our family traditional work forward, which is, the preservation of culture and tradition. So they sent me to Loreto from class 5 onwards.
Right.
And I didn't know a word of English, but I learned enough by the time I left, yes.
Yes, and Loreto has that kind of impact on most of our lives, right?
Yes,
because I think most of the English convent schools that we have here in Shillong really polishes us up, especially our skill of speaking English.
And we had the most amazing Irish nuns who were so kind and they understood, because there were children from all over the world that time.
Right.
So many from that time it was East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. There were children from the tea gardens who were pure English and lots of others who knew perfect English and I didn't know at all. So they were so kind and I remember them with great affection.
Yeah, and I'm sure those days had an impact on you because today you're writing in English. You've translated works into English,
yes,
right?
That's right.
Ma'am, you identify yourself, you have kept your Khasi identity, right? I mean, though you come from a mixed parentage background, tell us a little bit about your parents also.
Well, this is a very interesting question and people have asked me, so I literally had to travel back into time. When I was growing up, it was like just very natural. See, like we lived in my maternal grandfather's house, grandmother's house according to tradition. And then we'd go over to my paternal grandparents. And Buram Mekha Pakha is a very important aspect of Khasi tradition. So respecting them and then going to Ramakrishna mission for Durga Puja, that was it. But we lived very much a Khasi traditional life. But nobody talked about it. And then 1967, when I was I was going to join Lady Shri Ram. Then normally when you go on a long journey and you start a new chapter in life, it was like part of I think everyone's family's tradition that the elders sit you down and sort of talk to you about how to conduct yourself and what you're going to face in the future. So my two mamas were there and my father.
Okay.
And my elder mama Ham Singh said, okay, you go ahead, you must study hard, you must, lead along, walk along the right path and all that sort of thing. The youngest mama said, now you are your form says what you belong to, and it was scheduled tribe, so that's what you are. But don't touch the scholarship. And I wouldn't know what they were talking about because, it was like, I was so young, I was just barely almost 17. He said, because some taxpayer in UP is going to be paying for your education, please don't take it. We'll manage. Then came my father's side. My father also spoke. He said, look, you're going out in this big world now, away from Shillong, and I don't want you to have a crisis of identity. You've grown up in this very vibrant culture in your mother's land, which you hugely respected. So you identify yourself as a Khasi. Because he felt that the question, if I had a crisis of identity or any of us had a crisis of identity, it may sort of confuse us and we won't be able to take the best out of life. So that's how I lived and that's how we are.
Wonderful, because as you're narrating it, I could almost picturize that scene where your seniors, your uncles,
still see them. Yes.
Yeah, they sit, and that isn't that so important, ma'am? Because I think this is sometimes missing in our modern parentage. That parents don't sit the way they should, guide them and mold them into becoming individuals of the future.
Because communication is very important.
Right.
Yeah. And they'll pray in a little bit of rice, and my mother prayed in a little bit of rice and tied it in a muslin, and then we take it along on our journey.
Wow.
So that is how I identify myself as a Khasi, with full respect from my paternal side, because that is also very much part of Khasi tradition. Because the father is the progenitor of the clan, so we call them Kha.
Right.
So Kha, in the old days, in fact, the only people whose feet we touch are the Khas, not anymore, because that respect has to be there.
Right,
yes.
right. And as I said, all these experiences that you have gone through has made you into the person you are today, right? I'm sure you owe them a lot also.
I owe them. I owe my school, I owe my parents, I owe my uncles and aunts. We lived in a joint family in Sawian,
yes. And you just said that you also owe a lot to your education, the schooling. So how much has, because you have mastered in, taking up English literature. So how has that also honed your skill into writing? And because expressing oneself is very important when one is to write. How has that helped you in your writing skills?
So as I said, they were very keen that I joined Loreto to learn the language. But they also made us understand that education goes beyond books. So what we were taught at home through the Jingsnengtam men, for example, it's not that they read it out to us or just thrust it down our throat, but they led by example. So education also means how to behave, how to talk, how to conduct yourself, how to cope. So that education came from home. And then Senkhasi was a great base for me because I got in touch with a lot of, I'm still in touch with them, the children I grew up with, and Senkhasi, of course. And then Loreto honed my skills for this language.
And ma'am, as you say that is important, isn't it? Because there are such wonderful legendary works in Khasi which you also wish the world to know, because until it is like Rabindranath Tagore also did the same thing with his Gitanjali, right? And for that he was awarded the Nobel Prize. I mean, you need the world to know also of the richness in writing that is there in the languages also. So I think that was one of your motive too.
Motive was, of course, the first thing was that how do I contribute? I'm living so far away. The sense of inadequacy that I'm living here, but what am I doing for the Khasi people and the culture? And of course, rerouting, because I do believe a tree cannot grow without its roots, no matter how well you water it.
Absolutely.
So if you are rooted, I'm not saying that everyone should have a cultural identity, but I feel comfortable in my identity.
Yeah, and the Khasis indeed have a very rich culture, tradition.
Very rich culture,
I mean,
tradition.
we see these wonderful dances and the
Yes,
festivals, and
yes,
it
yes.
all comes out,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And I'm sure you are one proud person, you know,
Yeah,
of
we used
your
to dance.
culture,
Yes,
right?
I'm very
Yes.
proud.
Ma'am, as we continue this conversation, you have also but written novels, and two of your novels that I have mentioned, one of them is called The Shadow Men, and another one, A Family Secret and Other Stories. I think it's a collection of stories.
Story in which I highlighted some aspect of Khasi life in each story.
Okay.
But yeah, yes, there's two
So,
books.
how much in these novels does the culture, the land, the people find a mention in these stories of yours, in these novels of yours?
Shadow Man has a story,
Okay.
you know, within a story. I mean, I was here in 2000, or was it 2001? It was August. My father just passed away, so I decided to stay back here. And it was like a very August evening. Then we had a shower, and it was right in this house actually. And we were walking up and down with my sister-in-law Anita, I've dedicated the book to her, and to my English teacher, Mother Neves. And you know, suddenly we heard some crackers, you know. And I said, Anita, what's happening? She said, oh, it must be, I think someone's celebrating on the other hill or something. I said, okay. Then we kept walking. And I was telling her how much I want to now write a book and stuff like that. And then suddenly we saw some smoke, you know, on the other hill.
Okay.
So I said, Anita, what's that? And she said, oh, someone's burning leaves. I said, you can't be burning leaves in August. So by the time we reached here, my brother was here. He was, of course, he was in the police, but he wasn't posted in Meghalaya at that time, Bijoya. He said, get in, that the police are firing and the militants are about to enter our compound. So I said, oh my God. So we went and hid under that staircase there. And it was so funny, Moshni, because the first thing I said was, thank God our dogs are not loose. So they said, you're talking about militants. So, you know, there's all this conversation was taking place under those stairs. And I said, yeah, but I don't believe anyone in the world wants to do anything bad or anything violent. There must be a reason for it. And then, of course, we just kept quiet because, you know, they were running down and they were going down to the gorge below. So then that night, then Anita told me, Bijoya, why don't you write about it? You seem to have an opinion. So I said, yes, I do have an opinion, and, you know, I don't mind writing about it. So next day, I went up to my brother's house, my younger brother's house, and I said, let me talk about it, you know, because he lives here, and he'll have a different perspective. He's connected with the local people. But he wasn't there. So I sat and had a cup of tea, and then I picked up this Bob Dylan book, you know.
Okay.
And I was just reading and reading, and suddenly I came upon one song.
Okay.
I mean, it's just coincidence, you know. And I started reading that song, and I said, my God, I've heard this before. I've heard this being narrated not as a song, but as an experience. And I came back and I wrote the book. And, you know, I just want to, actually, I just mentioned just 4 lines in this song. And this is what touched me, actually.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying I am pro-violence or pro-militancy, but I always feel everyone has a story and an explanation. So this is the Bob Dylan which actually inspired this book, called Shadow Men.
Right.
And the second edition is coming in January.
Okay.
And Bob Dylan writes, everyone wants to know why he couldn't adjust. Adjust to what? A dream that bust? He was a clean-cut kid, but they made a killer out of him. That's what they did. They said what's up is down, and they said what isn't is. They put ideas in his head he thought were his. He was a clean-cut kid, but they made a killer out of him. That's what they did. So this inspired this book, and I wrote it, and then Penguin took it up immediately.
Wow.
Yeah, they took it
Right.
out immediately because they never heard this side of the story. So it's
Absolutely.
more from the man's point of view. Why is a Khasi man so troubled, so upset? Because we are not, I mean, nobody wants to be destructive. Nobody wants to be negative. Nobody wants to be violent, you know. So this is my story.
So this is this book, that means, finds a reflection of the other side, and that is we are in a matrilineal, but then nobody wants to talk about the other side, that patrilineal.
Yes,
So you have
yes.
brought that in.
You
I
see,
suppose.
Maushami, it worked very well in the old days. See, the lineage is taken from the mother, and the mama is the head of the family. And it doesn't matter whether he's successful or not, or how rich or poor, he's the mama and he's revered, just as the father is greatly honored.
Right.
But in a world where money has replaced all values, unless the mama is very successful, nobody cares.
Right.
So obviously the mama is going to feel bad, you know. And I wrote in this book, let's supposing a man wants to start some business, and he goes to a bank and he says, can you, you know, where are your land papers so that we can give you a loan? And then he says, I have no land, you know. But now things have changed.
Changed, yes.
The mother, those who can are giving their sons and their daughters equally. And but we'll talk about unemployment later. Yes.
So that means your story, did it have a happy ending? I mean, do you believe in happy ending stories, or do you, or to leave it at that so that the rest of it can be conjured by the
in the end?
by
Yes,
the
she
readers
said
themselves?
the wife of the man says things are getting better. Yes.
Okay, so on
and
a
they are
positive,
better. They are much better, and this was written 10 years ago.
Right.
So things are better, and people are realizing, and the parents, the society is trying to change, you know, because I'm so sad, but it's all about money and economics.
Right.
And wherever there's like unemployment, it's all about economics, Moshe.
Yeah. But then as a writer, what is the role of a writer? Because certain times a writer instigates also and can create a situation which can go a little bit out of hand.
Yeah.
We have seen it many a times, and writers have been banned from their countries,
yeah,
etc.
yeah.
Right? So as a writer, what is the role of a writer? I mean, a writer also is a nourisher. It does, gives out good, positive vibes to the society. Do you see a writer play that kind of a role as well?
I personally take it as a responsibility. And I want to bring about change, and I want to bring positive thoughts. And okay, you have to tell a story. You can't lie about things. But I certainly want a change in society.
Right.
I feel a sense of responsibility, and I would certainly not write to inflame any kind of emotion.
That's a good thing that you've said, and that should be well understood. You know, because they say the might of the pen, it has both the negative as well as
some
the
of my friends
positive
don't
too.
believe that, but I think we're living in such a difficult times, full of conflict and so much hatred. Why should we tap that within us? Tap something more positive.
Right.
Contribute to something positive. Inspire and lead in a more positive way.
And I think inspirations are there all around us, right? I think Meghalaya itself is such a beautiful place. I mean, when I'm sitting here right outside this window, I can see some beautiful greens.
Yes.
These and many more are inspirations enough for a writer to write positive things.
Yes.
What were your other, this collection of stories that you've written, A Family Secret and others? They are a collection of short stories that you've written over time.
Yes.
So it's been compiled together.
Yes. These stories, of course, are stories which little incidents have inspired me, you know.
Happy stories.
Yeah, they're stories of just lives in Meghalaya with a kind of a surprise ending, you know.
Okay.
And but each story highlights some aspect of Meghalaya life.
Right.
You know, it's not like Shadow Men, which is like more which I thought I had to write.
Right.
You know, it's a kind of catharsis. These are happy stories in the sense that, yeah, they're just ordinary lives, you know, people. Yeah.
And has religion also found a reflection in your writing?
No, not at all. I mean, I have characters from all, because Shillong is full of, like, you know, I don't bring religion into it
in your writings at all.
Not at
But
all.
then, having said so, what is your first love, therefore? Because,
My first love is to live in a borderless world
Okay.
where there's no conflict and everyone is happy and equal, but it doesn't really happen.
No.
Okay.
So you have translated works, you have
Yeah,
written
yeah,
novels. So
yeah,
is your first love always fiction?
Always fiction. But the sense of responsibility I feel when my aunt said, Khasi culture and tradition has to be preserved. And if you don't translate, it was very difficult to translate
Right.
the main ceremonies of the Khasis.
Right,
But
right.
I did it as a sense of responsibility. Yeah.
So would you want to read up something from your other stories also, like, from your other works also, a small stanza or a small para, so that, our viewers are watching this program, and I'm sure they're already involved in this program, will get a little bit more insight into your writing style?
Well, reading a whole story, but I'll tell you a story,
Okay.
which incident which inspired one of the stories called The Passing. I wanted to actually talk about the Khasi way, about the Khasi funeral.
Okay.
And so I thought this actually happened because when my cousin passed away, he was married thrice. He had 3 wives. I think that's better English. He had 3 wives, and my sister and my sister-in-law went to his funeral, and I thought it was so beautiful because when he was a Christian, so they had brought him out, and so his first family and the children came and paid respects,
Okay.
and after that the second wife and her children, and then the present wife and her kids. And I thought, wow, I need to write the story.
Okay.
And I could also weave in our way of, I feel like, because like the people who are mourning were still traditional indigenous faith Khasi. So I could bring that in. And I thought this is such a beautiful gesture.
Right.
And that's how I wrote the book.
Yeah, because though there is conflict, though there are situations sometimes which goes beyond our control, but then I think we can all coexist.
I feel so important now, but this is my message to the youth actually, because they are the future of the country, that we are living in such difficult times, and you must realize there's so many divisive factors in the landscape and in the mindscape even of our topmost leaders, and we must be alert.
Right.
We must try to avoid that.
We should be able to have the judgment to choose what is right and which is not
what
right.
is wrong. And we should not try to divide and have conflict and hatred, because progress and development cannot happen in a place of conflict and so much hatred. So I want to tell the youth that, and I also want to tell them that please think of rural India. It's no use the government saying bullet trains and high-rise buildings and 6-lane highways, if in the villages there are no roads even to reach a hospital.
Basic infrastructure.
Yeah, and there are schools which have no teachers. Now, so I want the educated youth to think about this and in some way contribute towards the development of rural India.
On that note, I also have a quick question for you. Are you sometimes worried that, westernization, modernization is reaching our youth so fast and they're imbibing it so quickly that they are moving away from their roots, their beautiful roots of tradition, their own culture, their own identity?
Yes. I feel that unless you have a sense of pride and self-worth about your own culture and tradition, it disturbs the inner journey, the evolvement of your own soul and identity.
Right.
Enjoy yourself, listen to all the music, dance as much as you want.
And be open
dress
to ideas,
the way you
to
want,
all
be
ideas.
open. But don't lose what you are, because, then you're not rooted. They say rootlessness that's another way of thinking. So, but it's not my way. I feel if you're rooted, you can fly as much as you want, but you feel that you have that sense of security,
Right.
a sense of that foundation. And I think even a house needs foundation. A tree needs roots. We are just part of this universe, no? We also need that.
Absolutely. I think
So-
this is a wonderful message that you have
Yes,
passed,
yes,
especially to our youth who sometimes gets a little disturbed and
They feel ashamed to be traditional. I have so many relatives and friends and all uh, who feel so ashamed to be traditional because they feel that they've got it all wrong. The education system is all wrong. I mean, we are not teaching enough beyond the books. How to deal with life, how to conduct yourself. I mean, they are really confused, the youth, and they're turning to all sorts of negative things.
right. And ma'am, when you are writing, I mean, I'm sure you're still continuing to write.
Yes, yes.
Now in Dehradun, sometimes here in Shillong, you are also in the field of education, right? You're, imparting values to the little
Yes,
children
yes,
too.
yes,
I mean, the values that you have, you are also giving it out to them so that they carry on the legacy. But then, where is writing going to take you, or where do you see your writing in the years ahead? I mean, what more are you going to write?
Well, translation, I'm just doing the Jingruai Ki Senkhasi, that is
Okay.
the songs of Senkhasi. Simultaneously, I've moved, my next collection of short stories is not about Meghalaya.
Okay.
It's about, I went to Sri Lanka, I wrote a short story based on Sri Lanka. Then I went to Mizoram, I wrote one about that. I went to Kashmir, then one is based in London. So they're totally different, but they're me. You
So
know.
your experiences, wherever you've gone, you've collected, something caught your attention, your mind.
Yeah,
And,
and it stays in my mind, and then it's saying, and the story keeps going on, and say, please write me down, please write me down.
Okay.
And then I have no choice but to write it down. Yeah.
how long does it take for you to write a short story?
See, the draft, I could be writing while I'm traveling or anything, just the draft, I mean, just a few points would take 20 to half an hour. Then I write the full story in about 3 days. Then I keep going back to it
yeah.
till I feel it's perfect, you know.
But then, sometimes the youth, I mean, they are there who are writing, who are into poems also, they're in a hurry to publish, right?
That's the instant, the instant success. Everything has to be instant. Our life is a journey. And I don't blame the kids. I mean, they want to be famous. They want to be published as soon as possible. But I was just thinking that the story I wrote before 1997, before I translated Kajing Sneng the Men, I mean, this is just Sneng the Men, which is like quite a book. I'm fairing it out now because it makes more sense, and I've reached that level of maturity which can give my best to that story. And I'm so glad I didn't get it published 30 years earlier.
That is what I was coming to. I think we should take our time to publish our work, right?
Yes,
because
yes, yes.
your ideas mature, you mature, along with you, your ideas mature,
yes.
and what you're putting down in words also matures. Because later on, when 10 years later after publication, when you go back, you should still be able to be proud of what you have written.
Yes, yes.
Not feel sorry, oh my, why did I write this? I could have written this better.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So in a few years from now, you will continue writing, which is your first love. You'll also be delving
And
education, right? So as we are almost, I think, almost winding up this conversation with you, what therefore would be your message to the youth, especially to the young writers, the budding writers who wants to write, what are the skills that is required for one to write? Is it innate? Is it inborn? Or can it be cultured and cultivated? And therefore, what should be your message to the young budding writers?
Well, rather than talk to just writers, I like to talk to all the young people. And I feel that whatever you're doing, whatever space you're working in, whether you're a musician, a sportsman, a teacher, a farmer, an electrician, a carpenter, whatever you're doing, just do it well. And that's enough to contribute to your own growth and to the community. Be proud of what you do. Do it well, And success is measured by how much of yourself you put into something. If you've done your best, you have succeeded. So be proud of whatever you're doing. focus on it, and that's your greatest contribution to your own inner journey and to the community and the country.
It's so important that you said that we must contribute again. I mean, you brought it out several times that, you know, our contribution should be to the community. You have to give it back
country,
to the
yeah.
people, to the country.
To the community means, yeah, we all, yeah.
To
Yes,
everybody,
yes.
yeah. Because some way or the other, everybody has touched your lives, right?
Yes.
As we are drawing, I mean, as we are ending this conversation, this lovely conversation that you and me just had, and I'm sure that our listeners, our viewers also
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Would you like to read something for us before we draw curtain to this conversation?
Yes, okay, I'll read from Jinx Thank the Men, which I think it will touch everyone. Because I don't want to just talk about writers, because people are doing so many things.
So many other things too.
Whatever you're doing, you're a gardener, you're a bureaucrat, you can be a minister, you can be anything. There's nothing like big and small. If you've done your best, you've succeeded. You know, there shouldn't be always. And I'll read this one, I think from Jinx Thank the Men. Whatever you know, whatever you gain, it's useless if not by truth sustained. Even if very rich you become, if no one respects you, what use is the pomp? Even if you are very grandly attired, it's useless, for it's only your shame camouflaged. You may reach the top, sit on horse elephant. If your reputation is sullied, what use is it then? Even if you worship with folded hands, what use is it if you are not honest and kind?
Right. I mean, that speaks and wraps up the whole message that you want to pass through to everybody.
Yes.
Ma'am, you know, I mean, the language that you use, it has prose in it, it has poetic language also. And that only goes to show the personality, the person that you are. You know, your experiences has molded you to this level today that you're being able to write such lovely works.
Thank
we
you.
wish you well. We really hope and pray that you continue to write for us, for all the young ones also who will be reading, and leave your legacy behind, because you come from a very legendary family, respected and admired by the society on the whole. I'm sure that you will continue to do your good work. Thank you so much for taking your time out today and for also sharing a part of you, a part of your growing years, of your writing and all your experiences that you have all shared with us today in this program. Thank you so much.
Thank
ma'am.
you so much.
Well then, dear viewers, I'm sure you've enjoyed watching this program, this interaction that we had with Ma'am Bijoya Sawian. And I'm sure that, you have also imbibed some of these lovely insights that she has shared with all of us today. Thank you so much for joining in this literary program of ours. Do care to join us again next time when we will be bringing you another such personality from this beautiful home of Kong Bijoya Sawian. We take your leave, and until next time, it's bye-bye.